Did a billionaire just admit to being wrong and misleading the public because it benefited Donald Trump's presidential campaign? Sort of.
Most people underestimated the way that Bill Ackman is completely losing it. That's what he said about you.
The billionaire boys are back in town and they're trying to buy the 2024 election, which is scary because money can move a lot of things in various directions. We all know that many elections are won or lost depending on which candidate has got more money behind them. The more money, the wider reach, and the greater influence.
People want to take advantage of our country. They have to pay to take advantage of our country.
Since the campaign finance laws in this country are laughable and easily bypassed, billionaires like Bill Ackman and Elon Musk are funneling millions of dollars into Donald Trump's campaign, even while pretending they're not. But more on that later. They're also modern-day influencers just by virtue of their incredible wealth. People love to follow billionaires on social media, and billionaires, for some reason, love to be on social media. I would have thought that their lives are simply too rich and too full with all of the things that money can buy for them to be concerned with the digital world to the extent that they are. But money apparently cannot buy unadulterated adulation, at least not as much of it as they can get on social media. I'm just saying, if I had billions of dollars, I would be doing any and everything else besides sitting at home tweeting and trolling. Of course, I'm leaving out the fact that social media followers are oftentimes exactly that. Followers. They're susceptible to being easily influenced, which is why they willingly follow people who self-identify as influencers, and they seem to be susceptible to manipulation. If you are a power-hungry billionaire whose only concern is growing your already preposterous wealth, an easily manipulated following can certainly come in handy in that regard. In this case, their next wealth-growing strategy is to get Trump back in office as president, because even though he might make things financially worse for mostly everyone else, including his supporters, Trump would do great things for the billionaire class.
In our first 100 days, President Trump and a Republican majority will make the Trump tax cuts permanent.
But Trump has his followers fooled because they want to be influenced and fooled by him. They want to believe in this utopia he's selling, where corporations that have already been getting away with unsubstantiated price increases would just benevolently lower their prices once Trump is in office. And it would have to be out of benevolence because Trump hasn't said anything about how he would actually lower prices at the grocery store. Instead, he's been promising tax cuts to various groups of people to entice them to vote for him, even though experts say those promises cannot and should not be kept. They shouldn't be made in the first place. The tax cuts that Trump has been promising people would be realistically untenable and would only serve to increase the national debt. Trump and his supporters love to complain that Democrats have not done enough to decrease the national debt. So I wonder if Trump intentionally increasing it will be met with the same level of disdain and distrust. He has also unveiled a tariff plan, a plan that economists and mathematicians and political commentators have all pointed out would be bad for the majority of Americans. Let's look at this exchange between Trump and Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite.
What about consumers? People out there?
They're going to be the biggest beneficiaries.
Yeah, critics say your tariffs will end up being like a national sales tax.
Nope.
Because
the countries will pay.
If you have, America at the moment has $3 trillion worth of imports. You're going to add tariffs to every single one of them. That is going to push up the cost for all those people who want to buy foreign goods.
No. What's going to happen?
That is just simple mathematics, President Trump.
It's not. Yeah, it is, but not the way you figure it. I was always very good at mathematics. Yes. Let me tell you, you're saying $3 trillion. Those companies,
$3 trillion worth of imports.
And they don't have to pay. And if, by the higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the country.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many years.
As the kids say, it's giving Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who just lost a case where he was accused of knowingly fudging financial projections and valuations, to put it lightly, and misleading investors. Here, he's so focused on growth, but his projections do not seem to be rooted in any kind of reality. The New York Times reported the national debt is approaching $36 trillion. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget projected last week that Mr. Trump's economic agenda could cost as much as $15 trillion over a decade. Economists from the Peterson Institute for International Economics, a nonpartisan think tank, estimated last month that if Mr. Trump's plans were enacted, the gross domestic product could be 9.7% lower than current forecasts, shrinking output and dampening consumer demand. During his presidency, Mr. Trump repeatedly relied on overly optimistic growth forecasts to make his budget proposals appear to be fiscally responsible. He claimed that his policies would drive more output and generate more investment than they ultimately did. In 2017, he predicted that economic growth would reach 6%, but it topped out around 3%. Economists also seem to agree that rather than succeeding in basically bullying foreign companies to set up shop right here in the US to avoid the tariffs, the proposed tariffs would only serve to plunge the US into a recession or a depression. The criticism of Trump's plan is so bad that they even had to acknowledge it on Fox News.
Well, let's talk about tariffs, because you mentioned that, and there are a lot of critics who say what you and President Trump are now talking about is something much broader than a targeted tariff. They say it's immediately going to add thousands of dollars of new costs for Americans every year. A couple of former members of Congress, a Republican and a Democrat, wrote a piece in The Hill this week warning about this. They say a major element of his economic plan is the imposition of high tariffs on imports, which would be much more likely to lead to a depression than anything that Harris is proposing. They walk through President Hoover's decision to improve broad tariffs after the October 29 crash in the markets, and they say it led to the same things they worry would happen now: higher cost of living for all Americans, a tougher time, higher tariffs on U.S. exports, and actually killing a lot of manufacturing jobs here in the U.S. So why not be more precision about it than what it sounds like President Trump is suggesting on the campaign trail?
If you're going to use slave labor in China, what a tariff says is that you're going to pay a fat penalty before bringing those products back into the United States. That's really the only way to ensure that America has a viable industrial base.
But why not do that
Shannon,
in a more precise way, a more surgical way than what we've been hearing from the campaign trail? Does President Trump plan something that is more targeted, or is it as broad as we've been led to believe by his own statements?
Well, Shannon, I think that President Trump can do these things in a broad-based way while also being targeted at the nations and at the industries that America most needs.
Anyway, as if we need to say it anymore on this channel than we already have over the last 10 years, the Trump economy is not for working-class Americans. He inherited Obama's economy when he came into office, then proceeded to trash it before handing it back to the Democrats. I will never understand why people blame sitting presidents for the current economy. It works in waves. We know this. Yes, there are things that presidents can do to influence the economy with a little bit more immediacy. Tariffs arguably could be one of those things, but overall there is a lag on implemented economic policy. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has reportedly donated $75 million to Trump's campaign while regularly pushing conspiracy theories on the social media site that he owns. And Bill Ackman, another billionaire with outsized political influence, has acknowledged that he had repeatedly promoted disinformation to his followers. While he acknowledged that the story was fake, he did not acknowledge how often he shared the story. Ackman had shared a story where a whistleblower revealed that Kamala Harris was given the questions prior to her debate against Donald Trump, and that the Harris campaign had colluded with ABC to ensure that Trump was fact-checked and she was not. A month later, he posted on X, "It seems pretty clear that the alleged ABC whistleblower debate story claiming that Kamala Harris was given questions in advance and other advantages was a fake." It's not exactly an apology or even an acknowledgement that he believed the fake story, but there he said it. But once the MAGA world has been presented with information, once they have chosen to believe it, once they want to believe it, there is no getting it out of their heads. They seem wholly incapable of adjusting their beliefs based on any kind of newly acquired information. And maybe that sounds harsh, but this is where we're at, a month out from an election. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.